Hi everyone, it's great to be here today with you live for the next around 20 to 30 minutes. My name is Dani Almeida. I am a founding member of the AI Guild and the director Data Lift. Welcome to all of you who are watching us live, all the people that are fluent in data. Please be an active participant and ask questions for us in the chat. So if you're watching on YouTube or on LinkedIn, please just send the questions and we will give our best answer to it. So today with me is Pouyan Fard. He is the lead AI consultant at Fard Consulting. Pouyan has years of experience advising companies from startups to global corporations on topics of data science, artificial intelligence, and marketing analytics. He has collaborated with Fortune 500 companies in pharma and life sciences, energy and mobility, chemical, transportation, automotive, aviation, finance, insurance, human resources, and sales and marketing industries. Thank you for joining me today for the fireside chat, Pouyan.
Thanks for having me, Dania.
So I just introduced you, and you have a huge list of different industries in which you have consulted for in topics of data and AI. So to get started, we like to always ask our guests, how did you get to where you are today? Can you share a bit about your journey as a consultant?
Sure, thanks. So my story with AI goes back to 2009 when I was still studying IT engineering. And by then, many AI methods and cloud services that we see nowadays, they were still under research and development phases. And we did not have such a high level of AI adoption across various industries. One example of it is that deep learning methods were still used primarily in the research sector, and there were lots of research activity, but not many real-world industrial applications because the hardware capabilities did not caught up with the capabilities of neural networks. So when I was studying artificial intelligence back in those days, one day I came across the concept of a strong AI, which means the AI that mimics the human brain capabilities. So it's more like a brain-inspired AI. And this topic caught my interest almost immediately. And I started to look more into works of brain-inspired AIs and worked in computation neuroscience and how scientists and artificial intelligence experts really look at the human brain in the works that has been done since 1970s, even 1950s on the artificial neural networks and what we know nowadays by deep learning. And I got really interested in these topics, and that was why I decided to move to Germany in 2012 to pursue my graduate studies in the field of computational neuroscience, which is basically building predictive models that can explain the behavior of humans and how human brain works. So I did my master's in this area at the University of Tübingen, and then I pursued a PhD on the same topics at Technical University of Dresden. And basically, I was doing a lot of research, both on the behavioral side, on the movements, on even some biomedical engineering.
Okay.
But really early in my research career, I realized that I needed to keep up with my connection with my engineering DNA. So I realized that I'm an engineer by heart, and I would like to keep continuing working on that and basically being an all-rounder. So also in research, but also in the engineering side. So that was why I started working on some AI engineering projects alongside my research career. So one of the first projects that I had was one of these EU research projects in robotics and AI that we use motion capture data to train AI algorithms that could explain human-like movements. So also, for example, we developed medical devices in virtual reality and machine learning technologies to provide some real-time feedback to a specific hand exercise that's done by patients. So these were some early experiences I have done in AI engineering and software development. I kept moving, developing more use cases, more applications of AI in different industries. And fast forward to today, I have worked on about 30 plus AI projects, both in research and industrial sectors, and with 40 plus clients ranging from startups to global corporations. And these companies are originating from 10 different countries. For example, United States, Australia, Switzerland, Germany, Netherlands, etc. So I'm the founder and lead AI consultant at Fard Consulting since 2019, and we provide a spectrum of services to primarily global corporations, but also SMEs across media, marketing, pharmaceutical, biotech, energy, transportation, HR, and legal tech industries. And
Nice.
areas that I have done, I specialize in is marketing analytics. And that is why I'm excited to share some insights about the journey towards AI-based dynamic pricing with you and your audience today. And definitely my talk in the Data Lift Summit in June.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Pouyan. So you see now that my cat just joined our session as well. Maybe he's going to do some meowing, so you know it's coming from the cat. Yes, I find it very impressive how you have, like you mainly said, you joined your engineering DNA with the at the time developing AI field, and quite early at the time, you already started developing some solutions combining the robotics aspect and the artificial intelligence aspect. This is pretty cool, and it is, I understand what maybe motivated you to become a consultant, right? So you have a large exposure to different types of companies in different industries. You work with a lot of different challenges, and you have also the chance to be creative and apply different solutions. That's pretty cool. And you're quite right. The reason, especially why we are now talking and why we're going live today, is because you are coming to Berlin for the Data Lift Summit in June. So I am also very much into my career itself was very much into marketing analytics. So I'm also very much looking forward to meeting in person and hearing your session. And now you mentioned already you focus on AI-based dynamic pricing. So I would like to ask you to also present to our audience some of the business's applications of dynamic pricing. So maybe you can share with us the context in which companies have a need for the solution, and maybe through different industries, right? Like transportation or travel, e-commerce, and retail.
Absolutely, thank you. So when we look at the critical components of successful and profitable companies, especially the ones that started from earlier stage startups and made it to global corporations in the last 20, 30 years, we see that pricing is one of the most important pillars of success of a company. And pricing is so important that, for example, having a great pricing strategy can grow your company, but also having a bad pricing strategy can kill your entire business. So that is why management consultants are offering many different services on pricing strategies, not just with AI, but with conventional methods to companies in various industries since years. So, and because this type of use case is data driven in its nature, so we are talking about pricing and how humans react to different price points for products and services, both in B2C and B2B sectors. We can see that by nature, AI and data science have been used by companies to adjust their prices automatically. So sometimes companies are using AI and data science to automate their strategies, the execution of their strategies for sure, but also they use it to understand and evaluate and derive this pricing strategies. So this has been one of the most important use cases, for example, for e-commerce companies, for retail companies, but also it's really big in travel industry, like for airlines, for hotels, and car rental companies, and many different companies that are based on supply and demand type of pricing, and in a seasonal, and the pricing also has a seasonal aspect. So All in all, dynamic pricing applications, specifically like time-based and demand-based dynamic pricing approaches, uh, they have been used extensively in these industries. So we can see, for example, in hospitality, in transportation, in aviation, and they are used so widely that consumers easily notice the dynamic changes of the prices, for example, on these aggregator websites, and they visit these websites multiple times per day or before their travels to find what is the best price, what is the cheapest price, what is the best package. So usually airlines and hotels adjust their prices dynamically by time-based factors, for example, increasing prices due to higher seasons, but also demand-based elements. For example, in the airline industry, how many planes are already sold? So what is the in the airline terms we call load factor. So how many planes are already full? Usually, early buyers get a massive discounts in this type of demand-based or time-based pricing at the expense of last-minute buyers. So last-minute buyers pay a huge price, but early buyers get to choose the, let's say, premium discounts.
Yeah.
Also, transportation companies, we see that, for example, mobility service providers have used dynamic pricing in a demand-based approach. So they use AI. For example, companies like Uber and Lyft, they use AI to compute car ride prices by dynamically measuring the number of drivers, which is a supply, and the number of passengers, which is a demand, available on the apps. So if you visit these apps on a no drivers are available, you're probably going to get more expensive price for your, let's say, Uber ride.
Yes.
So the goal is these companies is to maximize their profit for sure. And they do it by dynamically varying the prices on multiple factors using data-driven technologies and AI. And that, in a nutshell, is dynamic pricing. But also, I want to mention that dynamic pricing is widely utilized in retail and e-commerce industries. And typical methods that these e-commerce or online retailers or even brick and mortar retailers use is sometimes is even a simple cost-based pricing. So meaning that they took their variable costs and they just add a simple margin on top of that. So the price is changing, but their margin stays the same in terms of percentage of margin that they take. Or they look
Understood.
at competitor prices, or they look at demand of the customers for specific products and services. So even in e-commerce, companies utilize dynamic pricing and these strategies based on some other factors like conversion rates, where they adjust prices based on the probability that they perceive for success of a marketing campaign. And so if I want to summarize, basically we can say that dynamic pricing, there are multiple different methods for it. So usually based on time, based on demand, based on cost of a specific product, based on competitor price, or even the expectation of success of a specific marketing campaign.
Understood. Yes. And well, I will assume here that use or leverage the AI or machine learning methods on top of all of this is more interesting for companies because it allows them to react faster to changes. In the example you brought from Uber, it's very much dynamic because there are drivers finishing the rides or starting new rides all the time, or people requesting rides all the time. It also allows them to consider different or even more data input. So that's one of the advantages, right? Maybe you can also share with us what do you see as big challenges for companies that want to make the shift from a traditional to a machine learning or AI based dynamic pricing?
Sure, absolutely. So it is worth noting that we see that in a lot of companies, they don't use only AI for dynamic pricing, but they use a wide range of approaches. So traditional approaches, data-driven approaches, or uh, sometimes mathematical approaches, sometimes AI. So I would like to mention that dynamic pricing does not necessarily have to be complex machine learning models. So it doesn't have to be machine learning, but it also doesn't have to be very complex, that using multiple variables is used for basically adjusting the prices multiple times a day, and these models are trained many times. But in long term, it is the best that companies move towards this. So it can be a straightforward in the beginning that companies maybe use a simple rule-based approach or a simple machine learning algorithm. And during the time, and as they gain more maturity in these use cases, and also they let the customers experience these dynamic price changes, they can adopt highly complex machine learning methods, because these methods typically requires a high amount of experimentation and a high amount of experiment related data available. So for this, there's a spectrum of data driven solutions, and some of them are done using machine learning. Some of them are very simple and actionable methods that can be even done using spreadsheets. And they are usually good for companies who have limited resources or simply just want to get started with experimenting and adjusting their prices dynamically. But as companies really go more mature in this journey and they want to utilize AI and machine learning in dynamic pricing use cases, we've seen a few examples how companies use AI and machine learning to facilitate this. So one of them is helping to know customers better by identifying customer segments. So these are the characteristics of customer behavior, and when we derive these customer segments, we can bundle and group a large number of customers together, and we basically identify this segment by a unique type of customer behavior. For example, we say these are last minute buyers who are not price sensitive, for example. This helps the companies to understand customers very well, and also helps to specify their pricing strategy, because they have the right perception of the customers and their behavior, and they can recommend the best price points to them. So it's really crucial in this type of machine learning application, and in generally in all type of AI-based approach to dynamic pricing, to put the customers at the center of pricing strategies using AI machine learning. And that's how, for example, customer segmentation can help. A second type of machine learning approaches that can be useful is estimating and understanding a demand function given the historical data or the data that we are gathering in real time and in the future. So here we can use a wide range of optimization and machine learning based approaches. For example, pricing elasticity, decision trees, Bayesian models. And basically, these methods help us to understand the relationship between the price and other factors that influence the demand of the customers. So once these methods are done, customers are understood, and basically we have a solid pricing strategy that can be done dynamically. We can automate these pricing decisions based on the winning strategies that we have derived based on our data-driven approaches. And this requires significant amount of experimentation. But once we have these winning strategies, we can really plug them into AI approaches that adjust the prices, giving the right price point, doing it at the right time, and doing it automatically, and therefore maximizing the profits of the companies that have. And these methods can be, for example, reinforcement learning or Bayesian methods. So in the end, these are the methods that are being used, but AI can also facilitate running experiments and optimizing experiment design. So this we can see some companies in the travel industry, for example, they run, or even e-commerce, they run a lot of A/B testing experiments. Yes. And usually these A/B testing experiments, in a traditional sense, the experiment design is run completely randomly. But it was found that when we use AI and machine learning to doing a more informed allocation of customers to, let's say, control and treatment groups, and this can be done, for example, with Bayesian causal models, then this is especially affecting the performance of the A/B testing and helps us to really doing more data-driven control experiments that can help us to find more winning pricing strategies, and this can really shape our dynamic pricing strategy in the future.
Oh, okay, really cool. So let me try and unpack a bit of what you said, see if I got it right. So you started, there are many different ways to do dynamic pricing, right? You can use data and even simple methods like some table with some different options of prices. To do machine learning on it, there are different also methods of doing it. For example, you can look at the customer segmentation or use different types of machine learning techniques to do customer segmentation. And having the customer at the center of your dynamic pricing strategy will help you to recommend the best price for that type of customer, or maybe for the time that the customer arrives at your offer. And then you can also try to model the demand. So there are different ways to model demand as well. But if you can predict that demand, then you can offer the best price given the demand. All of this is already like each of those topics, you can try different machine learning algorithms. And then there is the third aspect, which is to be able to leverage really AI to the right price allocation at the right time. You need to do a lot of experiments. You need to collect the data, basically the training data for your AI model. And to do the A/B tasks, you can also leverage some techniques that are better than just the random allocation for the splitting of the groups. And with that, you have better, not only better performance because you can do directly better pricing and optimize for example, the profit, but also because you can collect more data that will allow you to have a better model. And then you enter that cycle, that virtual cycle, right? With more data, then the better the models, and better the models, better optimization you have of the price, and then more profits you can make.
Absolutely. You just summed it up completely correctly.
Cool. Cool. Yes, from my experience, I have done both the part of the segmentation of the customers. I have done a little bit of demand forecasting as well. But yes, it's really nice how you were able to connect this under the umbrella of the dynamic pricing and include also the A/B test aspect of it. So you can see that how they all connect and how one solution, let's say when we talk about AI-based dynamic pricing, it actually means a lot of smaller solutions inside, or a lot of different machine learning, or a lot of different types of data that you have to connect and make it work as one solution.
Yes, absolutely.
That is pretty cool. And then let me make the shift. So we are talking a lot about this is the topic of our session, but also it will be the topic of your use case discussion for the Data Lift Summit. So I put here now the title. It's called The Journey Towards AI-Based Dynamic Pricing. Can you share with us what people can expect from your session?
Absolutely. So my session is mostly on the strategic level. So how the leaders, how the business owners are organizing a long-term dynamic pricing initiative. And usually I see that the companies are seeing it as a project-based approach or initiative-based approach, but I would like to stress that this is really a journey that we believe that companies need to make towards developing fully automated AI-based dynamic pricing. In our experience, many companies with large amount of historical data that have available in their data warehouses or in their data lakes typically jump too fast to the final AI-based solution without first having a detailed analysis of customer behavior or doing control experiments. And in most cases, these decisions are driven by having this perception of a shiny new object that is AI, fully automated AI-based dynamic pricing that is going to be basically promote the company's products or services, especially the pricing aspect, with the promise that is being advertised to business leaders that there will be a short-term profit maximization in short term. We believe that this is more or less a risky approach for companies, for the revenue, for the bottom line. And we believe that companies should not really overlook the importance of going through this journey, guided and centered by understanding of customer behavior. And in the end, we have this famous saying that customers vote with their wallet. So we really should not try to automate these decisions, outsourcing it to AI without fully understanding what is the behavior of our customers, what is our data, what are the different aspects from time viewpoint, from basically customer behavior viewpoint, when customers want to buy, which products they prefer. So these actions, these processes in the projects definitely needs to be done. And even after that, adopting AI-based dynamic pricing tool without proper data exploration experimentation, as I said, can impose significant risk of revenue loss to the companies. So this is the pain point that I'm trying to picture, because we see that a lot, that companies really want to jump to AI side very fast. So what we propose instead, and this journey that we are proposing, is that all the steps that they're taking is towards finding a winning strategy to the customers. And this is through extensive experimentation, using machine learning to analyze and find the significant indicators of customer behavior. And let's keep in mind that these factors, customer behavior, can also be very dynamic due to macroeconomics events. So I have an example. How many of us have the same traveling behavior comparing to prior to pandemic? So this is pretty much affecting the customer behavior. And even you find a winning strategy, you must keep looking for new winning strategy. You must keep looking for validating your assumptions and feed all of that in your AI-based dynamic pricing engine. So this is what I'm going to talk about. So instead of jumping to the final solution, I would like to mention a journey that companies need to follow towards gaining maturity in dynamic pricing. And by following this path, I think industry leaders can gain profit maximization using AI machine learning, but in a very controlled and by minimizing the risk in the process.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I believe that is very much what is winning approach, this idea of minimizing the risks, right? And fully automating a solution, giving it to a black box, which is most of the times what the AI solution is. It is somehow scary as well, because you don't know what's happening there. Maybe you don't know the data, you don't understand how the decisions are being made, and they will have a large impact at the bottom line. So you're quite right to say that you fully understand first your data, you understand your customers, you understand the dynamics, and then with a lot of experimentation, you can start automating it until you have it fully automated. So I really appreciate you bringing this as a journey, not just a ready to go solution. And yes, I am pretty much sold, and I really want to see what you're going to present as the steps of this journey during your presentation at the Data Lift Summit.
Thanks for having me, Dania, and thanks for your kind words.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the insightful exchange. I am looking forward to seeing you in Berlin in June.
Same here. See you in June.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.